record, and you should get a note that says I'm recording.
I did, yes.
Okay, all right,
Okay, let me
all right.
fix this.
So without further ado, Meg Shea and Amy Golitz, take it away, ladies.
Okay, 1 second, I'm just fixing. Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. As Tom said, my name is Amy Golitz. I am, as you know, a Lake County Master Gardener volunteer, and I'm presenting with Meg Shea, a fellow Lake County Master Gardener volunteer. I did want to tell you that the OSU extension office number and the MGV number and our helpline email, MGV email, that's all on your handout, as well as the link to the YouTube videos for the presentations. Meg and I are also Master Rain Gardeners. Well, actually, Meg is certified and I am awaiting certification. This means we have taken the Master Rain Gardener program presented by the Chagrin River Watershed Partners and the Lake County Soil and Water Conservation District. The Master Rain Gardener program is a completely different program than the Master Gardener Volunteer program, which is presented by The Ohio State University. The Master Rain Gardener program is run by Laura Bunnell and Natalie Gertz Young in Lake County and Elizabeth Heiser in Cuyahoga County. This is our agenda for today. Meg and I are going to give an overview of rain gardens based on what we have learned in the Master Rain Gardener program. Let's get started with rain gardens and stormwater management. A very good place to start is with the definition of a rain garden. A rain garden is a sunken flower bed planted with native plants and sized to capture stormwater runoff. It's a sponge for the landscape. Why are rain gardens necessary? To help solve a problem. We have replaced many of our natural areas with impervious surfaces, such as roofs, driveways, parking lots, and roads. These impervious surfaces prevent rain from soaking into the ground as it would in a natural area. When rainwater cannot soak into the ground, it flows across the surfaces, usually ending up in our streams and our lakes and wetlands untreated. This flow is considered storm water runoff. The runoff picks up pollutants that have been left on the ground and sweeps them downstream too. Do you all remember what happened to Lake Erie last year? Excess nutrients transported to Lake Erie caused huge algae blooms near Toledo. The problem is when the algae die, they sink to the bottom, they decompose, and they remove oxygen from the water, causing the fish and other aquatic wildlife to die. The stormwater runoff adds litter, excess fertilizers, and pollution to the same water that we swim in and boat in, play in, and drink from. To help you realize the great impact stormwater runoff may have, please know that a 1,000 square foot roof area can generate 600 gallons of water runoff during a 1-inch rain event. So how much water is 600 gallons? 12 bathtubs full. And that's just from a 1,000 square foot area. Multiply that number by how many 1,000 square feet of impervious surfaces we have, and stormwater management becomes that much more important. Let's talk about how rain gardens work and the benefits they provide. Rain gardens are designed to mimic the natural water cycle. The rainwater and the stormwater runoff collect in the rain garden. The plant roots and the soil trap the sediments and metals and absorb water and nutrients. The clean water filters through the soil and replenishes the groundwater, and the overflow leaves the rain garden cleaner, improving downstream water quality. Native plants flourish, providing beautiful wildlife habitats. Rain gardens reduce local flooding and help with the erosion and moisture control by soaking up and slowing stormwater runoff. The goal of a rain garden is to capture most of the rainfall from small storms. They're not expected to handle all the rainfall from large storms that are associated with major flooding problems, but any increase in rainwater management is a plus. I don't know if you recognize the photo on the bottom is the Grist Mill condominiums in Paynesville. Remember that flooding? They called it the 500-year storm. Everything that enters our storm drains empties into Lake Erie untreated. I think this is such a powerful photo. Rain gardens intercept stormwater runoff before it enters the sewers, and so before it enters Lake Erie. They reduce the volume of water so that sewers are not overwhelmed. Because rain gardens filter stormwater runoff, they improve the downstream water quality by removing pollutants such as fertilizers, litter, gas and oil from cars, and pet waste. That's my puppy Coco representing the pet waste. Rain gardens provide yet another space to grow native plants that support our native pollinators and wildlife. And rain gardens definitely add beauty to your landscape. The term rain garden is somewhat of a misnomer, as more often than not, your rain garden will be dry. A rain garden is not a pond, and it is not a mosquito breeding ground. Rain gardens typically drain in under 24 hours, while mosquitoes require 7 to 10 days of standing water to lay and hatch eggs. Now let's talk about where to put your rain garden and what size it should be to properly work. This is where a little detective work comes into play. You want to watch how water flows across your property during a storm event. Where does the water come from? Where does it go? And where does the water stand? You want to take advantage of your natural water flow. Your rain garden should be located where it can intercept the stormwater runoff before it enters a ditch, a drain, or a nearby waterway. It's important to note that rain gardens must be located at least 10 feet away from a foundation and at least 25 feet away from your septic system drain fields. Obstacles such as utility lines and tree roots must be taken into account. I know I had to reconsider my initial site because I hit too many tree roots. Please call 811 before you dig if you are worried about underground utilities. This is a tool to help you determine how water flows over your property. It's a contour map printed from the Lake County Navigator mapping software. Let me get my pointer. Okay. This is a view of my property, which is kind of creepy and Big Brotherish. I can see that both my daughters were home and a boyfriend was home. But each green line here represents a change in elevation of 2 feet. And I don't know if you can see the numbers clearly, but my my property is sloping down. If the map were to extend farther to the right here, you would see a stream behind my property. And that is what I'm improving my water quality for. I built a rain garden off the back of my shed here to catch the water runoff before it hits that stream. Instructions on how to obtain a contour map of your own Lake County property are included on your handout. If possible, you want to place your rain garden in full to partial sun. The sun will help your rain garden dry out after a rain event, although it is quite possible to have a rain garden in the shade. To figure out how big your rain garden needs to be to catch all the water you want it to catch, you first need to identify your drainage area. Where is the runoff coming from that you want to catch? Once you identify your drainage area, you need to calculate the square footage of that drainage area. I took this photo from the internet, and isn't that house cute? We are going to assume we're catching water from one side of her roof. So you measure or estimate the length and width of the roof, multiply the two together to get the square footage. So here I'm assuming her roof is 50 foot by 25 feet. which multiplied together, you get a drainage area of 1,250 square feet. We're going to use that number in just a bit. The next thing we need to do after identifying your drainage area is determine the soil permeability, or how fast the soil drains. And we do that with a percolation test. Performing a perk test is simple. You dig a hole 18 inches deep within the proposed rain garden site. Although I have to be honest, I did not get 18 inches down. I hit what felt like bedrock. I went down as deep as I could go. You fill that hole with water and let it drain, and then fill it with water again. This time when it's draining, you're observing how long it takes for that hole to drain. The big question is, did your soil absorb the water in under 24 hours, or did it take longer than 24 hours? If the water drained in less than 24 hours, it means that your soils tend towards the sandy, and your rain garden area can be smaller because the water drains quicker. If the water took longer than 24 hours to drain, it means your soils tend towards the clayey, and your rain garden needs to be wider to account for the slower infiltration rate. So based on the answer to the really big question, you use the following factors. If the water drained in less than 24 hours, the square footage of your rain garden should be 20% of the drainage area. So thinking back to that oh so cute little house, remember it had a drainage area of 1,250 square feet. We multiply that by 20% and learn that our rain garden with sandy soils should be approximately 250 square feet to properly capture the runoff from that roof. If the water took more than 24 hours to drain, the square footage of your rain garden should be 30% of the drainage area. So for that same roof drainage area, if your soils took longer to absorb the water, we know that your soils tend towards the clayey, that actually is a word, and the rain garden now has to be 375 square feet to properly catch the runoff. Now that we know how to calculate the area of a rain garden, it's on to design and installation. We are going to dissect a rain garden in a couple of different ways. First, the elements of a rain garden. There are 4 main elements. The basin is the bathtub of the rain garden, where water is held until it soaks into the ground. The bottom of the basin should be flat to evenly distribute the water. If rain gardens are bowl-shaped, too much water concentrates in one place and it will not function as intended. The inlet is the means in which water is directed to your rain garden. Usually it is from a gutter downspout, but it doesn't have to be. You can catch water running freely over your property, and sometimes a pipe is trenched to properly direct the flow. You may want to place stones in that entry area to prevent intense inflow from washing out your mulch or plants. The berm is the rim of the rain garden. It is usually raised to hold water in the basin until it soaks in. And the emergency outflow or overflow directs water to another spot you don't mind getting wet should the basin fill up and overflow. This would only happen during an exceptionally heavy rain event. The overflow is usually just a simple dip in the berm on the downstream side of the garden. It is also reinforced with river rock, or can be, for stability. It is important that the bottom of the inlet, here we go, be higher than the overflow on the opposite side, or water may back up into your inlet. Now that we know the elements of a rain garden, let's talk about the layers of a rain garden. These layers determine how deep you have to dig to create your rain garden. You can see here on this map, which has a lot going on, but here are our 4 elements. Here's our inlet, here's the basin, and the berm with the emergency overflow. The bottom 6 inches of every rain garden will be a rain garden soil mix of topsoil and compost. The compost helps with the water retention and adds nutrients to your plants. The second layer of a rain garden is your ponding area, or the area allowed for the water to pond or collect until it drains. Remember, the ponding is just temporary until the soil absorbs the water. The ponding depth will be either 3 inches or 4 to 6 inches and is determined by your PERC test. So going back to your PERC test, if the water drained in less than 24 hours, the ponding depth would be between 4 and 6 inches. There's a range for the ponding depth for those soils draining under 24 hours to accommodate the different proportion of sand and clay you may have. This is something, of course, that the instructors of the Master Rain Gardener program to help you decide. I have to say, if it was me and my soils drained in under 24 hours, which they didn't, I would use 5 inches. I think that's a good middle of the road. So your total depth of your rain garden, or how deep down you have to dig, would be anywhere from 10 to 12 inches, which is your 6 inches of soil and compost mix, plus your 4 to 6 inches of ponding depth. If in the PERC test, your water took longer than 24 hours to drain, the ponding depth would be 3 inches. Easy peasy. So the total depth of your rain garden would be 9 inches, as mine was, the 6 inches of soil and compost mixed at the bottom, plus 3 inches of ponding depth. The last layer of a rain garden is your mulch layer. You want 2 to 3 inches of mulch. And the mulch layer lies within your ponding depth layer. It does not figure into your calculation of how deep your rain garden needs to be dug. Mulch, of course, helps with moisture retention and helps build up the organic matter in your soil. So when you're building a rain garden, everyone will have the 6 inches of soil and compost mix at the bottom. Everyone's going to have 2 to 3 inches of mulch. The layer that varies for each rain garden is the ponding depth. There was a very interesting article written by the University of Wisconsin-Madison Arboretum on how to determine your soil makeup by using the ribbon field test, and it included this handy flow chart. It will give you a feel for how much compost you need based on what's in your soil. I've included the link to this article on your handout. You can also use the jar test to determine your soil composition, and Meg's going to talk about that during her rain garden story. Now on to my favorite part of any presentation, planting with native plants. It is recommended by the Northeast Ohio Master Rain Gardener program that your rain garden be planted with native plants. A native plant is a plant that occurs naturally in an ecoregion and habitat, where over the course of evolutionary time, it has adapted to the physical conditions and co-evolved with other species in the ecosystem. The photo in the background is spotted bee balm, a Monarda punctata, which is a beautiful native that attracts bees and works well in a rain garden. How do you know if a plant is native to your region? You look it up on the USDA plants database. And if you Google USDA plants database, it is the first entry that comes up. The green color tells us that Monarda fistulosa, or wild bergamot, which is a beautiful plant, is not only native to North America, but also native to Ohio. If it was non-native or introduced, the map would be blue. Why should you use native plants? Because native plants rock. They support our local food webs because they have evolved with our native wildlife. They have evolved with our climate, so they are naturally adapted to varying conditions of rainfall and drought, which incidentally matches our rain garden habitat, and they are just beautiful. Let me go over some of these photos I have here. This is Clethra elnifolia, or summer sweet. That's my favorite shrub. Here's a liatris. This beauty is winterberry. This is gray-headed coneflower, or Ratibida pinnata. Here's big blue stem. This is a mountain mint called Pygnanthemum virginianum. Here's a sycamore tree. And our native swamp mallow, Hibiscus muscutus, which both Meg and I have planted in our rain gardens. All of these plants will work in a rain garden. Native plants have deep roots that break up soil, which increases the soil's ability to hold water and draw it down deep into the ground. The measurements on the side of this graphic are a little blurry, and I apologize, but this is going down 15 feet. And many of our native grasses have roots extending 10 feet. This is lead plant. Here's Indian grass, big blue stem. Here's switchgrass, a coneflower, and a liatris. Look at those roots. Oh, and by the way, it is recommended that plants and not seeds be used for a rain garden, as the seeds would most likely be washed away with the rain events before they had time to establish. Native plants also attract beneficial insects, which are good garden bugs that you want in your yard because they parasitize or predate pest insects. Isn't this a beautiful sight? With the next few slides, I will share some of the plants highlighted by the Master Rain Gardener program. These particular plants on this side were recommended for full sun or part shade. Here's blue flag iris, fox sedge, and cardinal flower. The blue lobelia also works well. For shade, wild ginger, marsh marigold, and any of the ferns work well. You do want to note that with marsh marigold, that plant may go dormant in full sun during the summer, so you'll need to allow for those blank spaces. Part shade tolerant plants, just a few you can use, are nodding wild onion, swamp milkweed, or spiderwort. And these plants require full sun, beard tongue, blue false indigo, and New England aster. It is helpful to know that a rain garden has 3 planting zones, which for me was a woohoo, 3 different soil conditions to add more plants. As always, you want to make sure to use the right plant, right place approach. Don't fight your site. So zone 1 of the basin of the rain garden is our wettest area, of course, but even the basin will dry out between rain events, and the plants you use must be able to withstand soggy and drought condition. That's why we use natives. Zone 2 is on the side slopes, which also will have water up to a few inches, but that does drain more quickly. And zone 3 is the berm, where plants would grow in a drier soil if you choose to use a plantable berm. Meg's going to show you an alternative to a plantable berm. Elizabeth Heiser from Cuyahoga County has created a filterable spreadsheet that lists the native plants recommended for rain garden. She details many plant characteristics on this spreadsheet. It had to take her hours and hours to do. She charts the bloom time. She indicates what part of the rain garden the plant will do best in, and even includes links to websites for more information for each plant. The link to this spreadsheet is included on your handout. This spreadsheet lists natives and some nativars, which are cultivars of native plants. These nativars that she has on there are acceptable to use based on why they were cultivated. You need to do your research before you use cultivars. These 2 photos on the page, this upper, right, is golden ragwort, Packera aurea. It's a beautiful native ground cover for shade. And down here is our pink turtlehead. Where do you buy native plants? This website, www.ohionativeplantmonth.org, has a list of Ohio nurseries who sell native plants. This website is also included on your handout. And I love this quote. I wanted to share it. Native plant gardening does not limit your aesthetic choices. It expands your ethical ones. That was written by Benjamin Vogt, who is the author of A New Garden Ethic, Cultivating Defiant Compassion for an Uncertain Future. It was a very good book. Rain gardens, like any garden, are not maintenance free. You will need to water, especially in the first 2 years while your plants are establishing and possibly during times of drought. You want to weed regularly, like you do any other garden. The recommendation by the program to cluster plantings is usually more appropriate for public gardens where you may have workers weeding who don't know their plants. Of course, you want to add or replace dead or dying vegetation. And you want to add mulch annually, but don't over mulch. You want 2 to 3 inches of mulch total. So if you're going to mulch every year, pay attention to what's already there and only add up. So your total mulch layer is 2 to 3 inches. You also want to make sure to pull the mulch away from the base of plants so they can grow properly. And there is no need to fertilize a rain garden. Rainwater and compost provide all the natural fertilizers your native plants need. I actually don't fertilize any of my property. Oh, now finally it's Meg's turn to talk. Excuse us while we switch chairs.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Am I on here or?
You're on, you just can't see yourself.
I can't see myself.
No, and then there's the clicker to advance the slide.
Or this.
Yeah, that, yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As Amy said, I'm Meg Shea, and I'm a Lake County Master Gardener Volunteer, class of 2010. So this is actually my 10-year anniversary this year. Yay, very exciting. I'm very happy to be a Master Gardener. And then, as Amy said, we both took the Master Rain Gardener class in 2019, August, so just about a year ago. So now taking off my Master Gardener shirt, and here's my Rain Gardener shirt. Can they see me?
They can.
They can, okay. And so we've been Master Rain Gardeners for about a year, very exciting. Enjoyed both of those courses very, very much. The Master Rain Gardener course that we took a year ago was 5 Wednesdays in a row, all through the month of August. And those were half days, a little bit more than half days. And it was a blast. That was in person. Now you take them online for the time being. And after the course was over, we were then to build our rain gardens. And so my husband, John, and I started working on our rain garden in probably September, I think, maybe August. And what I'm going to do is give you the story of our rain garden. And so let's go on and show it. Okay, so the second day's homework, the second coursework day, we had to dig our perk test. So my husband dug this one in the site that we had chosen for the rain garden itself. So this is kind of right in the middle of it. And this was August 9th of last year. And so John dug a hole that was exactly 18 inches, Amy.
Oh, good for you.
It was a little bit hard digging, but it's 18 inches, as you can see, by 12 inches across. We filled that up with water, let that drain, and then filled it up with water again. And then we started watching to see how long it would drain. I have very sandy soil. So I'm going to give you all a minute to think about how long you think it took to drain. And you will be probably surprised to hear that it was 21.5 hours. I thought it was going to be 6 hours, but it was not. So even in our sandy soil, it took a little while to drain, but that does meet the requirement of less than 24 hours. So that's good. And that impacts how deep we had to dig our rain garden. And I'm going to show you the jar test that Amy talked about a little bit. this was the result of our jar test, and I'm not sure that you can see it very well, but up to here is sand.
Raise it up a little bit, Meg. There you
Okay.
go.
I can't see myself, so I'm
A
not.
little
sure.
higher. Perfect. That's good.
I think I need to see myself. Hang on.
That's
we're just-
good.
we're
Yeah, you're
adjusting.
good.
Okay.
There you go.
There is a darker area right about right here that is the silt layer. And then it may be hard for you to see, but right here is my clay area. It's maybe a 1/4 inch. So you can see how sandy our soil is. So to do this test, basically you get some soil, 2 to 3 cups of soil dug up from the area, put it in a container and pulverize it. Let it dry a little bit and then pulverize it. You want it to be very powdery. And then take about a cup of that and put it in your jar. Fill your jar to a pretty high level, close to the top, and then shake the heck out of it and put your jar down, and then you observe it. In 1 minute, your sand is going to settle. When you see that settle, you mark that spot. In 1 hour, the silt is going to settle. And in 1 day, the clay is going to settle. And that's going to yield this. Pretty cool. So that tells me that our sand here, and I'm up on off Lakeshore in kind of North Menor, is about 80% sand. Okay. So moving on, I think the next day's homework was to draw a plan for the rain garden. And this was mine. It's 9 by 21 feet on graph paper. And I chose the plants I originally thought I would use. There's 12 of them. And I think I've used 6 of them and added 4 different ones. Okay, so next slide shows the rain garden with the hose wrapped around. And we came up with this size because we did the math, estimating our roof runoff area, the square feet, and that's the width times the length of the roof that feeds the rain garden. And that worked out to about 500 feet. And then because we have sandy soil, we used a factor of 0.2, 20%. And that came up with about 100 feet of rain garden. Well, we went a lot bigger than that. And you can see in the second picture, John has used Roundup to kill the grass. And you can see the flags. We called 811 and had the utilities, underground utilities marked. Okay. So here we are digging out. You can see our soil now, very sandy. You can see the irrigation pipes down there, the white pipes. You can see over on the left side, the stones that we had chosen. And next slide, we have a pond. This was after a rain event, October, late October. And on the far side of the rain garden, you can see a higher area where we have some parent soil dug out, which we're going to use to mix back in with the compost. And here it is adding the compost. That's actually December. And this is leaf compost that we bought to use. And we added about 3 yards in the fall. And then in the spring, we added another 2 yards. And here we are, a snow scene. And believe it or not, that's November 12th last year. I know, does anyone remember that? Okay, now in this picture, it is early May, and we've had 2 pallets of sandstone delivered. This sandstone is out of a quarry in Concord, and John is now doing the hard labor of trying to build that wall. Instead of a plantable berm, we went with a stone berm to kind of tie our garden in with the rest of our existing gardens. Just a choice we made, and we're very happy with how it looks. A lot of hard work though, and he did have to chisel those stones apart to make them fit, kind of a puzzle. But it was fun. Okay, and now this is June 9th, and it's planting day. And it's the hottest day of the year. It was dreadful. We planted a mix of purchased plants, seedlings that I had grown. I grew them using a winter sowing method. And they are very small seedlings, but you can see the styrofoam cups are my seedlings. And then there are a few plants in there that we dug up either from our yard or from friends' yards and put them in there. At this point, when you plant them, even though these are natives, you really do have to keep them watered. You're going to keep them watered for weeks, if not much longer, depending on your weather. I pretty much watered those all last summer when we got dry periods. And here's after a rain event. The plants are settling in, and I have some cages on them to protect them. Cages I bought at Dollar Tree to protect some of the very tiny seedlings. We have deer running through the yard and dogs and so forth, so I didn't want them trampled. So that's why those wacky cages are in there. I want to point out, I don't have a designed overflow area. We've noticed that there are 2 areas where the water escapes naturally through 2 gaps in the stone, which we've left purposely for it to overflow. And it's no problem at all. It just goes into the side yard. But I didn't want to design an overflow, being that we're using the rocks. And here we are in August. I got certified this day. Laura Bunnell came out and delivered this sign to me and delivered my shirt. And I've got cool stuff on the back of the shirt as well. So the sign does help you advertise that you have a rain garden. And oftentimes I do have friends and neighbors stop by and they want to see it. They want to know what that is. So the sign is very helpful. And here we have a little visitor, a little toad who hangs out quite often in the rain garden. His name is Porky Jr. And he seems to love it a lot. So since we built this rain garden, we have really enjoyed watching it as it changes, as you know, it fills up with water. anytime it rains, we run to the window and look out to see how the rain garden looks with rain in it. And we've noticed that as soon as the rain stops coming down, the garden drains almost immediately. Within 10 or 15 minutes, we'll notice the level has gone way down, and within maybe, oh gosh, 20 or 30 minutes after big rain, the garden is completely dry. This garden is dry most of the time. It fills up during a rain event, and then it absolutely drains very, very quickly afterwards. So in conclusion, I would just like to say rain gardens are lots of fun to have. And if you're interested in taking the course, I would encourage that. It's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun to see how the rain garden performs and changes over time. So thank you.
Hey, musical chairs. This is Amy again. Okay, I obviously we're over Meg's house and I've seen her rain garden. It's absolutely beautiful. It's very, very pretty. To finish up on the presentation, we're down to the part of what can you do? You can build a rain garden. Wait, I'm just going to minimize this. Okay. We have given you an overview of rain gardens based on what we have learned in the class, and I think you can do a rain garden yourself just based on what we did today. Don't be afraid of the math. It's really not that hard. And if you have any questions, I included my email and Meg's email on the handout. Feel free to email us with any questions. If we can help, we'd be happy to. If you want more knowledge and more detail about rain gardens, I would recommend becoming a master rain gardener and taking that class. The program, as Meg said, consists of 5 classes. When we took it, we were in person. It delves into the process of building a rain garden in great detail. You have experienced teachers, you have customized feedback, and you have field trips, which were very educational to see how other people did their rain gardens. The classes for 2020 are being finished as we speak. And the 2021 schedule, to the best of my knowledge, has not yet been determined, but we have included Laura's and Natalie's contact information for Lake County and Elizabeth's for Cuyahoga County in case you want to contact them and enroll in that class. And if you don't have the time, the inclination, or space to build a rain garden on your own property, within the confines of the class, it is possible to adopt a public rain garden to help maintain it. These are a couple of our local rain gardens in need of a little love. Let's see. Hold on. Okay, I advanced too quickly. This is the rain garden around the Lake County Soil and Water Conservation District. And Meg and I were talking, we're sure that there were marsh marigolds here, which have either gone dormant in the full sun since it's summer or died. That's what that big blank space is for, but that did used to be filled with plants. This is a rain garden on Dawson Boulevard in Mentor. This is quite a large rain garden at the Mentor Lagoons. And this last one here is at Munson Township Park. I also know we have one at the Lake County Fairgrounds. And like I said, within the confines of the program, you work with Laura and Natalie. If you aren't able to build a rain garden on your own property, maintaining one of these satisfies their volunteer requirement for certification. And thank you to Meg for taking all these wonderful photos of the various rain gardens. Once you have built or adopted a rain garden, the program encourages you to share it with others to inspire and educate, as hopefully Meg and I are doing with you today. And you don't need to worry that you have to do this all on your own, because the Master Rain Gardener program allows for much feedback on your project, including postings on a Facebook page created specifically for the participants of the group. Meg is really good with feedback. I'm not so much, but a lot of people post their sites on here. You get opinions on what's going on with your rain garden, and it's quite helpful. Now I would like to share some resources that you may find helpful, and all of this information, or most of it, is on your handout. The Lake County Master Gardener volunteers are always here to help. You can contact our help, as Tom mentioned at the beginning of the program, by telephone or email. Please note that this telephone number, 440-853-2634, is a new telephone number as the Lake County Extension Office recently moved. Normally, the Master Gardener volunteers are at the Extension Office in person Tuesday mornings from 9 to 11 for helpline. So during that time, you're able to come there and talk to people. But of course, right now, we're not there due to the shutdown. All of our Meet Us in the Garden Zoom presentations that we have done this year are now on a YouTube channel in case you want to watch them. And that YouTube channel link is on your handout. You can also access it through the Lake County Master Gardener Volunteer OSU Extension website, as Tom mentioned earlier. This particular rain garden presentation will also be on that channel after OSU approves it for branding. There is a rain garden manual available online written by the Lake County Soil and Water Conservation District. It is dated, but the bones are very good. This is one resource that I forgot to put on your handout. So if you want to download this, please take note that you can get a free PDF online by typing the Rain Garden Manual for Homeowners, Erie Conservation District, and that will pop up. I talked to Natalie at the Lake County Soil and Water District office, and she has a few paper copies, not too many, but if you want a paper copy, you can contact her and see if there's one available. The Missouri Botanical Garden also has a rainscaping guide that I found helpful. This also includes a list of plants recommended for rain gardens. For more information on the plants themselves, please visit the Missouri Botanical Garden Plant Finder. I love this website. I am on it at least 20 times a day. Not only does it give you a pronunciation of the Latin names, which I find fascinating, there's also a link to the invasive plant atlas, should the plant you're looking at have invasive tendencies, which is always good to know. You can also use the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center plant database. If you find a plant here, you know it's native because they only list plants native to North America. Here is a rain garden to either inspire you or scare you. It's a private school in Pennsylvania. Here's the before picture and here's the after. Didn't they do a wonderful job? Mine does not look like that. Here's mine. It is very newly installed and small. My roof area, I forget the numbers, but I think my garden's only 45 square feet. That's all I needed for that shed roof area. I am not done putting the finishing touches on it yet. That's why I'm not certified, because I'm not happy with my berm. I need to still work on that. There's my plant list, and I planted plants that will become monsters. They'll have to duke it out for space, but that's what I do. I'm always throwing plants next to each other and having to move the less aggressive one later. You can see right now that my rain barrel is also attached on the downspout, and the overflow is going into my rain garden. But I may be moving my rain barrel to my house and catching the water over there because my husband's all into saving water, which is so exciting. I'm glad I converted him. And so then this rain garden will bear the entire brunt of the water coming off my shed. My rain garden had very minimal cost. I already had these rocks that I used for a border in my yard. I used my own compost because I'm a big composter. I bought my plants at the nursery that I work, so I got them at a discount, and the only expense I had was adding my mulch. And that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Again, I would encourage you, if you have questions after we sign off, feel free to email any of the people listed on your handout, myself and Meg included. And Tom, do we have any questions?